Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Will Eiserman from Utah State University. And before I go any further, let me just talk a little bit about just our logistics for today. You don't need to worry about signing in. You are signed in. You are with us, and you are muted. We're going to be opening up a text field toward the end of our presentation today into which you can type any questions that come up for you during our presentation today. Jot down any notes that you have along the way, and then if we happen to not have answered your questions, that will be a good time for you to raise them with us. I'd like to give a shout out to our interpreter and our captioner today. These are, as you can see, real life people who are helping us to be to provide the most accessible experience for everybody. So we're really thankful for their assistance with us today. This webinar is being recorded, which means that in the next couple of days, it'll be available to be streamed on either infanthearing.org or kidshearing.org. So if anything disrupts your full participation in today's webinar, or if you think of folks that might benefit from the content that we're covering today who aren't attending live, direct them to our websites, and we'll be talking about those periodically throughout our presentation today, kidshearing.org. In fact, that's a great thing to jot down right now if you have a piece of paper available, because everything that we're covering today is available there. So we hope that this will ignite your interest in going further and to check out our website when we're done, because there are many practical free resources available there. We also want to let you know that at the end of our webinar today, we're going to be opening up a quick little evaluation link that will also provide you with a way to get a certificate of participation in today's webinar. So if that's important to you, make sure you hang on at the end and get the link that will be displayed at the end of our webinar to get that certificate generated for you. So without any other delays, let's go ahead. And once again, I'll introduce myself. My name is Will Eiserman, and I'm the director of the Early Childhood Hearing Outreach Initiative, which some of you may recognize as the ECHO initiative at Utah State University. The ECHO initiative is housed within the National Center for Hearing Assessment and Management at Utah State, which serves as the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention National Technical Resource Center. This is funded through a cooperative agreement with the Maternal and Child Health Bureau. Since 2001, that's more than 20 years, the ECHO initiative served as the National Resource Center on Early Hearing Detection and Intervention, with a focus on supporting early Head Start and Head Start program staff in implementing evidence-based hearing screening and follow-up practices, as well as with many other early care and education providers in programs like Part C Early Intervention and other programs like that. And we're delighted to be able to continue to make our resources and other learning opportunities available to staff from Head Start programs, as well as anyone else in the early care and education community who can put these resources to work. So there you get a quick little shot of me. And I am joined today by Dr. Terry Faust, who is a pediatric audiologist and speech language pathologist who has served as a consultant and a trainer to the ECHO initiative since our very beginning.
Thank you, William. Yes, as William said, he and I, along with other ECHO team staff, as well as many local collaborators, have provided training in nearly every state. And it's really involved thousands of staff from early Head Start, American Indian, Alaska Native and Migrant Head Start, as well as other early care and education programs over that 20 years that William mentioned. But we are always encouraged, just like we are today, by the huge amount of interest that there is in establishing evidence-based hearing screening programs so that children with hearing-related needs can be identified and served.
We always like to start here. The work of the ECHO Initiative is based on the recognition that each day there are young children who are deaf or just hard of hearing who are being served in early childhood education and healthcare settings, often without their hearing-related needs being known by anyone. Hearing loss is often called an invisible condition. So the question is, how can we reliably identify which children have normal hearing and which may not?
Well, the short answer to that question, William, is that early care and education providers can be trained to conduct evidence-based hearing screening, just like you all can see here on your screen in these photos. Now, the ultimate outcome of a hearing screening program is that we can identify children who are deaf or hard of hearing who have not been identified previously. So if we take a look here, the procedure on the left is called otoacoustic emissions, or OAE hearing screening. And that's the recommended method for children birth to 3 years of age. And it's increasingly being recommended for children 3 to 5 years of age as well. On the right, you'll see the procedure, pure tone audiometry hearing screening, which has historically been the most commonly used method for screening children 3 years of age and older, which you'll still see in many early care and education settings or providers using. And so we'll talk about both of these methods today.
So let me give you a quick overview of what we want to cover today. While this presentation is not a training per se, our goal is to provide an overview of the big picture of what's involved in implementing evidence-based hearing screening for children across the age spectrum, birth to 5 years of age. And we're going to start off by giving you an overview of the auditory system, or the hearing system, which will help lay a foundation for understanding how the hearing screening methods we're going to be talking about today actually work. Then we're going to talk about why we screen for hearing loss. What even makes it possible for us to be seriously engaged in systematic screening for hearing? Then we'll talk about the two methods Terry just mentioned, OAE and pure tone audiometry, starting with an overview of the OAE screening process, followed by an overview of the pure tone audiometry screening process. Next, we'll address the important question, which you really want to think about when you're establishing a screening program. What do we do when a child doesn't pass a screening? We'll summarize the follow-up steps that are undertaken when a child doesn't pass a hearing screening on one or both ears. And we're going to wrap up by showing you how to access resources that we have available and that are available elsewhere to support the process of developing and maintaining quality evidence-based hearing screening practices. And then we'll address any questions you might have. So again, jot down questions that come up along the way. Maybe we will have done a good job and we will have anticipated your question and you won't have to raise it after all. But if there are things that we don't address, or that if you want us to repeat, at the end of the webinar, we'll open up the Q&A box for us to address those. So that's where we're headed. And you can follow our progression through these topics by referring to the left side of your screen. And since this is a recorded webinar, this left side menu can be useful if you return to this and want to navigate to specific portions of our presentation to review it again or to share with others. Before we launch into our primary content, I want to make sure you all know where to go after today's webinar to get additional resources, information, and access to training.
Hey, William, can I interject for just a moment?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, one of the things that you will all hear us say several times today is that we really want to make sure everyone understands is that implementing an evidence-based hearing screening practice is going to be more than just using a designated piece of equipment or a specific method. Because in implementing evidence-based practices, that the recommended equipment or the methods that we're going to be talking about today, they have to be used according to a prescribed set of steps under carefully controlled conditions, each step of which is carefully documented in detail. And this is, what we've really learned over the years. The Early Childhood Hearing Outreach Initiative, known as the ECHO Initiative, developed a wide free range of resources to help you achieve the goal of implementing evidence-based hearing screening. So our goal today is primarily to help you find all of the information and the resources that you're going to need.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So let's make sure right off the bat that you know where to go, why you will go there, and what you're going to find. So let's take a look at our website, which is kidshearing.org. We invite you to feel free to use all of these implementation tools, and certainly before you sit down to draft a letter to parents about your screening efforts, or a referral letter, or to develop a form for documenting your results, check out what we have at kidshearing.org, because you may just find what you're looking for already exists. Many of the resources that you'll find here on kidshearing.org are the result of various examples early childhood programs have shared with us that they wanted us to share with you. So you can be assured others have used the language and the format of many of these resources to achieve the same goals that you have. You'll also want to know that many of we also want to make sure that you know where to access training, because we know that's a question that you're going to have. So be assured that we can direct you to a specific location from our website where you can get the training that you need online. So let's have a quick look at the resources. But again, take time after the webinar to get acquainted with these resources. This is our landing page for kidshearing.org, which provides a wide variety of practical resources. The first part of the page places early childhood screening in the larger context of identifying children who are deaf or hard of hearing, expanding the traditional focus on newborn hearing screening to include a focus on identifying hearing loss throughout early childhood. Now, if we scroll down, this is where you'll find all of the practical resources most relevant to early childhood screening, starting with planning resources. You'll see under planning resources that there are some big picture resources, some handouts about just explaining the rationale, a lot of the information that we go over today. We're going to be encouraging you to have a partner audiologist or two in your community who can be there when you do the training, or after you train your staff, or after your staff completes training online, to screen with you and give you some pointers. And they can also be really valuable referral network for when children don't pass. So there are resources there for finding a local audiologist. There's resources under planning resources for how to find and select from the array of available equipment that is on the market now. In the next group of resources, you'll find where you can access training. As Terry mentioned, it's so much more than just using a piece of equipment or having a piece of equipment that has been designated. You'll want to make sure that you get thoroughly trained on the use of that equipment. Um, and you'll notice that under this heading, there is access to online training that you can access anytime you or your staff need it. And we know many of you are needing to know how to get training for hearing screening. So you can click on either OAE or pure tone audiometry screening, and you'll be taken to a separate NCHAM related non-federally funded website called learntoscreen.org where you can get that training. So then if we go on to the next set of resources, this is where you'll find a lot of practical resources for getting ready to screen children. Checklists for screening, a reminder of the screening protocol, letters to parents, referral letters for parents and providers, suggestions on how you talk to parents about screening and screening outcomes. So lots of good resources there for you to check out as well. And then follow-up resources we have available, including a tracking tool and resources for monitoring the quality of your screening program. So kidshearing.org. If you don't remember anything else from today, remember this website, because that's where you'll find this webinar in its recorded format, as well as all of the things that we just went over briefly. So let's put all of those resources into context, Terry. Let's start by giving an overview of the auditory or hearing system so that everybody has a general idea of what it means to be screening hearing.
Okay, thank you, William. So there are three main parts to the auditory system. There's the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear or cochlea. So when sound enters the outer ear, it causes the eardrum to vibrate, which then moves three small bones in the middle ear. This movement stimulates thousands of tiny sensitive hair cells in that snail-shaped portion of the inner ear called the cochlea. From the inner ear, the sound signal is carried along special nerves to the hearing centers of the brain, and then the individual experiences the sensation that we call sound. So while this is how the auditory system typically functions, there can be some exceptions. So there can be temporary issues like a wax blockage, or there can be fluid in the middle ear caused by ear infections that we may discover and get addressed during a hearing screening process. But that primary target condition of a hearing screen is the functioning of the inner ear or the cochlea, which is that snail-shaped portion of the ear that you see here. Now, in some instances, the sound will travel through the outer and the middle ear, but when it reaches the cochlea, the signal is not transmitted the way it should be to the brain, resulting in what we call a sensory neural hearing loss. Now, this condition, a sensory neural hearing loss, is usually permanent, and this is the primary condition for which we're screening in our mass screening efforts. Now, this might come as a surprise to you, but it's an important fact for you to know that sensory neural hearing loss is the most common birth defect in the United States.
Yeah, in fact, about 3 children in 1,000 are born with a hearing loss, deaf, or hard of hearing. Most newborns in the U.S. are now screened for hearing loss using evidence-based methods, most often before even leaving the hospital. But screening at the newborn period isn't enough, because the research suggests that the incidence of permanent hearing loss actually doubles between birth and school age, from 3 in 1,000 at birth that you see here to about 6 in 1,000 by the time children enter school. Some people even think it's even more than that.
Yeah, so as a result of that, we can't only screen for hearing loss at birth. We need to screen throughout early childhood, because hearing loss can occur at any time as a result of illness, physical trauma, or environmental or genetic factors. So this is often referred to as late onset hearing loss, simply meaning that it's acquired after the newborn period.
It's commonly understood that language development is at the heart of cognitive and social emotional development and school readiness. We talk a lot about that, and it drives many of the practices we see in early childhood settings, certainly frames a lot of what Head Start is all about. Think about how much emphasis is always placed on early language development, counting the words children can produce, all of that. Now, it's important to note that hearing health is at the heart of typical language development, and that if we're going to be conscientious about promoting language development as a part of our commitment to school readiness, we should be equally conscientious about monitoring the status of hearing throughout that same period. If hearing is compromised, then typical language development will ultimately be compromised as well. And we don't want to wait for a language delay to develop in order for that to trigger the time to check out the status of a child's hearing.
Yeah, this is exactly why we see so much emphasis being placed on monitoring the status of hearing in young children. So programs like Head Start, which for years have served as models of comprehensive health and education programs for young children and their families, they've required hearing screenings for all of their children, even before we've had the excellent methods that we now have to do this.
Sometimes we use the term screening and we neglect to make sure that everybody really understands what that means. As an audiologist, Terry, how do you describe what screening is, or in this case, what hearing screening is?
Yeah, that's a good point, William. So screening can be thought of as kind of a sorting process. That sorting process, it helps us separate the children who are at risk of having a condition from those who are far less likely to have that condition. So those in that first higher risk group, they're the ones that are followed with additional steps implemented by pediatric audiologists and healthcare providers to continue to refine that sorting process until we can definitively identify that small group of children that actually have a hearing loss. And to be blunt, we screen because we simply can't provide a comprehensive audiological evaluation on each and every child.
So screening, followed by appropriate audiological assessment and intervention, can dramatically improve the options and outcomes for children who are found to be deaf or hard of hearing. When hearing loss is identified early, we can make sure a child has access to language.
Yes, and as a result, children who are deaf and hard of hearing or hard of hearing are thriving in ways that used to be rare. And by providing hearing screening, you can be a part of creating these amazing life-changing outcomes. So we would love for you to take a look at several examples of children with severe to profound hearing loss who have had the benefits of early identification and quality intervention. These children are just learning, thriving, and they're communicating.
So we're going to take a look at two girls here who have severe to profound bilateral hearing loss. And they're just going to be playing with each other. They have hearing aids. That's their mode of assistance to address their hearing loss.
Over here. You're the next day. Okay. Are you guys talking? I'm skating. So look, this is the water. She's skating on the water. Yeah. Let's talk to each other. You talk to me. No, I'll talk to you. And I'll talk to you. And I will talk to you. And I will talk to you. And I will talk to you.
So they're talking to you and talking to you. It's just so wonderful seeing how well they communicate for their age, given that they're considered deaf. Now, in this next example, the parents of these children have elected to use sign language as their mode of communication or their primary mode of communication. Let's see how well they are communicating during a car ride. And in our next example, these boys have what are called cochlear implants. They'll explain that.
Hey, I'm AJ. Hi, my name is Dipson. People are special in different ways. One of the things that makes me feel special is I'm deaf. I'm deaf too, and deaf means that your ears can't hear. AJ and I have special things to show you. They're called cochlear implants. They help us hear. Cochlear implant is a big word, so I call them CI.
So those children remind us of our goal. We want to make sure that all children have access to language one way or another, regardless of whether they have a hearing loss. And the way to achieve that is to be fully committed to quality periodic hearing screening and follow-up.
Now, as we mentioned a moment ago, OAE and pure tone audiometry are the recommended methods that we're going to be talking about this afternoon. So the availability of OAE and pure tone screening means that it's no longer appropriate to rely solely on subjective methods that have been used in the past. These are methods such as ringing a bell behind a child's head, or depending solely on caregivers' perceptions of a child's hearing. Now, don't get me wrong, observation of a child's response to sound, especially the lack of a response, can be helpful, and we should pay attention to how children do or do not respond to their environment. But these sorts of observations, they don't constitute a hearing screening because they're far too crude and unreliable, and frankly, we can just do so much more than that because of our current technology.
It's also important to note that although some healthcare providers have incorporated evidence-based hearing screening into well-child visits, this is not yet standard practice, especially for children less than 4 years of age.
Yes, some parents may report with a lot of certainty that their healthcare provider did perform a hearing screening. But please understand this, and I really can't emphasize this enough as an audiologist. Routine examinations of ears by healthcare providers should not be mistaken as hearing screenings. It's really precisely because screening isn't yet happening consistently in that context that programs like yours are so helpful. They're adopting hearing screening practices because there's obviously an increased recognition of the importance of monitoring hearing. And now it's really feasible to do this in programs like yours and by people like you.
So the take-home message here is this. Unless a child's health or medical records include documentation of ear-specific hearing screening results and the screening method that was used, we should never assume a hearing screening was completed by someone else, even a healthcare provider.
Yeah, exactly. And another important point to remember, excuse me, is this. While OAE and pure tone screening, while they're highly reliable screening methods, they're not perfect. And that means that there may be some rare conditions that are not identified through these screenings. So whenever a parent expresses a concern about a child's hearing or language development, even if they've received and passed a hearing screening using one of these methods, that child should be referred for an evaluation from an audiologist.
So before we go on, let me say one more thing about newborn hearing screening results. When children enter programs or a system, especially during the first year of life, always be sure to collect their newborn hearing screening results. If the results are anything other than a pass on both ears, you want to make sure that the follow-up evaluations have already occurred. And if you don't see evidence of that, you'll want to help the family circle back to their healthcare provider to accomplish that. And if you're in a program that requires an annual hearing screening, you can use the newborn hearing screening result for the first year of a child's life, but you want to rescreen after that. Okay, so now let's talk about the two hearing screening methods that we're going to be talking about today and that are used during early childhood. If you're responsible for children who are under 3 years of age, the recommended method is OAE screening, or otoacoustic emission screening, which you see on the left here. If you're responsible for screening children 3 years of age or older, historically, pure tone audiometry has been considered the recommended method for this age group. This is that headset screening where the child raises a hand or performs a task each time they hear a sound that's presented into the earphone. You see this method being used on the right.
Now, there's growing recognition that for a variety of reasons, as common as the pure tone method has been, it may not always be the most feasible method to use with some of these younger children. The research has shown that 20 to 25% of children in that 3 to 5 year old age group can't be screened with this methodology because they just aren't developmentally able to follow the directions reliably. And that's really been our experience as well. So in those instances, OAE screening would be the preferred method for these children.
So at a minimum, if you're establishing evidence-based screening practices for 3 to 5 year olds, and if you're considering using pure tone screening, you want to also think about and be equipped with OAEs so that you have a strategy for that 20 to 25% who can't be screened with the pure tone method. Or alternatively, you'll need to have a means for systematically referring all of those children to audiologists who can perform the screening, which, to be frank, that could be quite challenging to accomplish. There just aren't that many audiologists and time in their schedules to screen children.
You know, to simplify things, more and more audiologists are recommending the use of OAEs uniformly with all children 3 years of age and older. And it's because it's quicker than pure tone screening, both to learn to do and to actually implement. And it's far more likely to be a method that's going to work across the board with all children in that 3 to 5 age group that you'd be screening. And it's equally as effective.
If you or your program are still undecided about which method to use primarily for children 3 years of age and older, we encourage you to carefully review a document we have on our website, which compares OAE screening and pure tone screening for this population. And I'll be showing you where to find that in a moment.
Great. Okay. Well, let's start with otoacoustic emissions, or OAE screening, which, as we said, is the recommended hearing screening method for birth to 3 year old children. And you see that here depicted in these photos. So if you're serving children birth to 3, then OAE is the one and only evidence-based method that's recommended by the American Academy of Audiology and the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, also known as ASHA.
And, you know, that's really an important thing to know, because if you're in a system like in Head Start, for example, that requires the use of evidence-based practice, the answer to that question is OAE screening. You're not going to find another evidence-based practice that you could defend. So OAE screening is the most appropriate method to identify young children at risk for permanent hearing loss in at least that birth to 3 year old range, because it's accurate and it's feasible. It doesn't require a behavioral response from the child, like raising a hand or something like that. And that means that we can screen children under 3 years of age. In fact, this screening is used often with newborns. It's quick and it's easy. Most children can be screened in just a minute or two, sometimes in as little as 30 seconds, once we've learned, and this is important, how to do the screening well. There is a little bit of a learning curve. It's a flexible tool. And what that means is we can go to where children are to conduct the screening, just like you see in the photo here. We went to his these screeners went to his little place at snack time and screened him while he was already happily participating with his friends at snack time. So we can screen in a variety of environments, including the classroom or the home. And most importantly of all, Terry.
Yeah, this is the key. It's effective. It's effective in identifying children who may have a mild hearing loss or a loss in just one ear, as well as those that have severe bilateral loss or hearing loss in both ears. And in addition, it really can be helpful in drawing attention to a broader range of hearing health conditions that may need further medical attention. OAE screening can also help to identify children that have a temporary hearing loss that is the result of middle ear infections. And although this isn't the primary goal of OAE hearing screening, it's definitely an additional benefit of screening with this method.
Take a look for a minute at these photos. These children that you see here are all being screened with the OAE method. Look at all these different ways they're being screened, these different settings and what they are doing. What do you notice about these photographs? They're not being pulled out of where they would normally be, out into some other environment that's foreign or strange to them. They're being screened in everyday educational home environments where children are already happily spending their time. And those folks that you see doing the screenings are often people that they already know. They're teachers, they're home visitors, health specialists who come in and out of their classrooms for different reasons. It works so well under all of those different circumstances.
Yeah, in fact, as you all know, the screening is going to work best when children are familiar and comfortable with the adult doing the screening, and where they can play with a toy, they can be held, or even sleep while the screening is being conducted.
Yeah, or even sleep while the screening is conducted. And that offers a whole other set of options. So Terry, let's walk through how the OAE screening procedure works. Again, folks, this is not a training. We're just giving you an overview so you really have an understanding in general how this works.
Yes. Okay. So let's begin. To conduct an OAE screening, we're going to first take a thorough look at the outer ear, that outer part of the ear, and we want to make sure that there's no visible sign of infection or blockage. And then a small probe on which we've placed a disposable cover. That small probe is then inserted firmly into the ear canal. And that probe delivers a low volume sound stimulus into the ear. Now, a cochlea, or the inner snail-shaped portion of the ear, a cochlea that is functioning normally will respond to this sound by sending the signal on through to the brain, while also producing an acoustic emission. And that comes back out. That emission is analyzed by the screening unit, and in approximately 30 seconds or so, a result will appear as either a pass or a refer.
So hold on, Terry. So you heard that correctly. A human ear actually responds to sound by producing an emission that we can measure coming back out of the cochlea and can be measured by a tiny microphone that's in that probe. And that's how we get these automated results.
Exactly. And the nice thing about that is that every normal healthy inner ear produces an emission that we can then record in this way.
And that's why we can screen children of so many different ages under so many different conditions, even sleep. Now, let's just watch a real-time, unedited screening using the OAE method of this little guy. You'll see the actual device here in a moment. She'll raise it up and you'll get a sense. But this gives you a sense under ideal circumstances what is involved in conducting an OAE screening.
Are you ready? Thank you.
So that celebration means they got a
Ready?
there you see the handheld device.
You already did it.
So like many skillful tasks, competent screeners can make it look so easy. And it often is easy once you've been trained and have had a little practice. To assist screeners in keeping all of the different steps of the screening process in mind, along with all of the other training resources that we have available, we have things like a skills checklist, which are all of the steps that you go through in preparing for and in actually completing a screening using the OAE method. And it guides the screener through this process. This is also a nice device or tool to use when evaluating screeners, just to maintain quality over time. So if you're a manager, it can be used as a competency-based observation for those that you're supervising as hearing screeners. As we emphasized earlier on, evidence-based screening is more than just using a designated piece of equipment. You have to be trained to use that equipment and have a screening and follow-up process built around that equipment. But you do need appropriate equipment. So let's talk about this for a moment. You should be aware that OAE equipment is available from several different companies and in models designed specifically for screening by lay individuals, such as most of you are who are participating today. And these simpler, less expensive models currently cost around $3,800.
There are also other equipment models that can look just like these that are intended for use by audiologists like myself that are designed for diagnostic purposes. So they'll go into far more specific testing. And these are more complicated and more expensive. You don't need or want those more expensive or complicated models. As non-audiologists, be careful to not purchase more than you need by getting the more simpler and basic models.
Now, in addition to the cost of the equipment, as Terry highlighted, each time you screen a child, there's a disposable cover that goes over the probe that goes into the ear. And that cover needs to have a really good snug fit in the child's ear. So they come in a variety of sizes and shapes. You'll need a good selection of those, and they cost between $1 and $1.50. Gulp. We know that is a cost, and it's something that needs to be budgeted for. We know from our work with Head Start, for example, that the cost of equipment and these disposables are considered an allowable expense to incorporate into your budget. So be aware of that. Now, since you will not always select the proper size probe cover the first time, you could end up using several different probe covers for a given child. And we get better at that over time, but especially at first, you'll want to have more than just one on hand for each child. And in fact, we recommend you purchase about twice as many probe covers as you have children to be screened.
Yeah, that's really a great point. And also, along those lines, you're also going to need some adult size probe covers as well, because during your learning process, as well as checking your equipment on a regular basis, you're going to be testing the equipment on your own ears or on another adult to make sure that it's functioning properly before screening children. So be sure to get some adult size probe covers as well.
When you meet with an equipment distributor or salesperson, they may mention that they'll offer you training. And it's important that you understand that this training is rarely sufficient to meet all of your training needs.
Yeah, the training offered by the salesperson is intended to acquaint you with the various functions of the equipment, but they're not going to train you on how to screen young children under a variety of conditions or how to document your results, how to communicate with parents, or what the follow-up protocol should be when a child does not pass. And this has been a point of confusion for some people, so we just want to make that really clear.
Yeah, we like to make this analogy. A car salesperson at a dealership may train you about the various functions of the car, which can be helpful. But that person is not going to teach you to drive, how to parallel park, et cetera, all that stuff. It's the same with purchasing hearing screening equipment. You'll need another way to actually learn how to screen. And as we will point out, one way you can do that is to access the online courses through our website, which we'll show you today.
Yeah, so doing that, and then if you can, having a local audiologist who can then screen alongside you when you're just getting started and can give you helpful pointers, that's really a great way to be sure to get the training that you need. And this is true whether you need training for OAE screening or the other method that we're going to talk about now, which is pure tone audiometry.
So let's do that. Let's talk about pure tone screening for those of you who may be considering this or may already be using screening for 3 to 5-year-olds. We want to note that this is never recommended for children under 3. As we mentioned earlier, pure tone screening has traditionally been the most common method used with children 3 to 5 years of age. You probably recognize the pure tone method either because you already use it or because you probably have had your own ears screened this way. In this procedure, musical note-like tones are presented to children through headphones, and children provide a behavioral response like raising a hand to indicate that they've heard the tones. Pure tone screening gives us a good idea of the functioning of the entire auditory system all the way to the brain, with the child showing us with a physical or behavioral indication that they perceived the sound. It's a relatively affordable method, with the screening equipment costing between $800 and $1,000. The equipment is durable and portable, enabling us to easily transport and use it in a variety of locations, and a wide range of individuals can be trained to perform the pure tone screening procedure.
Now, to conduct pure tone screening, we're going to start at the same place we did for OAEs. We're going to first take a look at the ear to make sure there's no visible sign of infection or blockage, just like we did prior to doing OAE screening. Now, if the ear appears normal, then the screener is going to instruct or condition the child in how to listen for a tone and then respond by raising a hand or placing a toy in a bucket. This step can take some time because we need to be sure that the child is able to reliably complete the screening task. Now, once the screener has observed that the child reliably responds to sounds, the sounds that are presented, just as the screener instructed, that's when the actual screening is started.
So we actually go through this step, Terry, right, before we actually are screening.
Absolutely. We need to be sure that they're giving us a reliable response before we start screening. Now, once we start screening, during the screening process, this same listen and respond game is going to be repeated, and we're going to repeat it at least twice at 3 different pitches on each ear. And then we're going to note the child's response or lack of response after each tone is presented. If the child responds appropriately and consistently to that range of tones presented to each ear, then the child passes the screening.
So the device, Terry, doesn't tell us whether they passed or not, right?
Right. As the screener, you will be making those pass or refer decisions based on the observable behavior.
So let's talk a little bit about what makes OAE and pure tone a little bit different from each other. Two especially notable ways that they differ is that the process requires children not only to be cooperative with pure tone screening, but to be full participants in the process, following directions and responding reliably. As we mentioned earlier, that means completing an initial process we refer to as conditioning or teaching the children, and then carefully determining whether or not we're getting reliable responses from them before even attempting to screen.
Yeah, and then the other difference between pure tone and OAE screening is the one you just identified just a minute ago, and that is that the screening itself is not automated like OAE is. Instead, in pure tone screening, as I mentioned, you as the screener will have to manually step through the presentation of each tone. You're going to do that multiple times for each ear, and then you're going to be recording each response. Then following a very specific protocol, you as the screener will determine whether the ear passed or not. So with pure tone screening, there's considerable more potential for screener error to produce inaccurate results. And so that's really why there's that need then for thorough training and oversight to make sure all the screeners are adhering to the prescribed screening protocol.
You know, it sounds like we're pointing out some of the downsides of pure tone screening, but one of the things that people really love about it and why it continues to be preferred by many people is because of that piece where the child is actually telling us that they perceive the sound. And, that it is not happening with OAE screening. So nothing is perfect, right? So Terry, let's walk through this example of the actual screening once we have conditioned a child with the pure tone method.
Yeah, thank you. So what you see here on your screen, this is an example of the actual screening steps that need to be documented for each ear as you screen. So through the training process, you'll learn all the steps of the conditioning and the screening process, and all of the environmental conditions that need to be monitored and met as you complete a child's screening. Then based on these results, you as the screener determine if each ear passes or not. The device, as I mentioned, the device itself does not produce that result, as is the case with OAE screening.
So you see here each of those check marks is the result of a screener initiated activity with the child, every one of those steps. As is true with the OAE method, kidshearing.org provides a set of implementation resources for pure tone screening, just like we do with OAEs. Similarly, we have a screening skills checklist for pure tone screening that you'll find on our website. The elements of these checklists serve as a basis for the training, as well as can be used for monitoring the quality of screening practices in your program. And that is especially important for pure tone screening because of all of the screener initiated steps that we can't forget to do, and that frankly we can sometimes forget to do if we have been doing this for a while. And one of them is making sure that we've got a really quiet environment to screen in. With pure tone screening, we can't screen just in their classrooms where children are playing. We do have to pull them out into an environment that is relatively silent. So we've given you an overview of the two methods. Regardless of which method you use, you'll eventually have a child that doesn't pass. So what then? In order to be evidence-based, your screening process has to include a follow-up protocol for when children don't pass. And we have to emphasize our screening efforts are only as good as our ability to systematically follow up when children don't pass the screening on one or both ears. So let me give you a quick walkthrough of the protocol, and then you can go on and look at it in more detail on our website after the webinar. The percentages that we're going to be giving here come from our data on well over 10,000 children birth to 3 years of age. 100% of your children will receive an initial screening on both ears. And I want to make sure, I don't remember if I just said this or not, but this protocol applies to either OAE or Pure Tone. It's the same follow-up protocol. Now, we expect that about 75% of children will pass on both ears and will not need any further follow-up. However, about 25% will not pass on one or both ears. And that means that those children will need a second screening within about 2 weeks.
You know, the interesting thing is that at this point, a good many of the children who didn't pass the first screening, they will pass the second screening. Only about 8% of the total number of children screened will not pass the second screening. These are the children that will need to be referred to a healthcare provider for a middle ear evaluation.
Yeah, and once any middle ear problems have been identified and resolved, we stay in touch with that middle ear provider, that healthcare provider, and get medical clearance to proceed and screen the children one more time. This is the third time those children, that 8%, would be screened.
So now we'll screen this, as William said, this small number of children a third time. We're going to expect that less than 1% of the total number of children being screened will not pass that third screening. So these children, they're the ones that'll be referred to a pediatric audiologist for a complete and full audiological evaluation.
You know, so some people ask us, well, can't I just refer all children to an audiologist after the first screening? Do you see how many children you'd be referring to an audiologist versus if you go through this protocol? And we do that because audiologists would be overwhelmed and not able to follow up on the children that actually need to be seen by them. So although there is a small subset of children that will need follow-up screening and referral after the initial screening, we've used this protocol in thousands of early childhood settings and have found that it's a feasible protocol to implement. That's what folks like those of you and in your programs have been telling us. It helps children get the medical and audiological attention that they need, while importantly minimizing unnecessary referrals to healthcare providers and to audiologists.
Now, once you're underway with your screening program, check to see if you're getting similar pass and refer percentages as you see here. If you find that your pass and refer percentages are significantly different from what we would anticipate at any point in this protocol, then you may want to seek some technical assistance.
This is just another illustration overviewing the screening and follow-up protocol. And this is available on our website for you to look at. And we really encourage you to look at the protocol while you're in the process of developing your screening activities, if you're starting fresh, because you want to figure out, how are we going to do this part? Who's going to play what roles, and how can we stay on top of the follow-up for that small group of children that need to be followed up? And again, just as a reminder, this protocol is used regardless of which screening method you're using, OAE or Pure Tone.
You know, there is one important exception to this protocol that's important to point out, and that's something that we mentioned at the very beginning. And that is whenever a parent or a caregiver expresses a concern about a child's hearing or language development, that child should be referred for an evaluation from a pediatric audiologist, even if they've passed a hearing screening. And this is true because if you recall from what we said earlier, hearing screening methods aren't 100% accurate or perfect. And so to be on the safe side, whenever there's an explicit concern about hearing or language, go ahead and make that direct referral. Of course, you can, and you probably ought to still screen the child and send that result along, but make the referral regardless of when a concern about hearing regardless whenever a concern about hearing or language development has been raised.
Now, I'm guessing that there are some folks on today that are already screening. And I want to point out what I think, Terry, this is one of the most common mistakes we have found over the years that people make when they're engaging in early childhood screening. You see there on the bottom of that protocol where it says the process is complete. There are really two conditions that you want to be aware of to know that you're done with a given child. Either they have passed on both ears at one or more of these screenings, or they've been referred to an audiologist. But if they're waiting to be rescreened, or if they've been referred to a healthcare provider, that's never the end of the road of the screening process. It's not over until they've either passed at least one time on each ear, or they've been to an audiologist. And that's just really important to remember, because we're kind of in a culture where we think when we make a referral to a healthcare provider, we're done and we can walk away. That's why we call this a middle ear consultation, in order to then proceed with the next screening. There is always a next step after that referral to the healthcare provider. So keep that in mind, and make sure that that next step is always happening. So let's return to our website, kidshearing.org, and review again where you're going to find the various resources to support your hearing screening and related activities, and start thinking about whether you have some questions you want to ask us, because we're going to be looking at our Q&A box here in a moment to see what we might not have addressed or that we need to repeat again to help you all out. So we invite you to feel free to use any of our implementation resources here. Our goal in creating all these resources over the years was basically to have everything that a given program would need in order to implement a full hearing screening and follow-up program. So once again, you'll first see here planning resources. And this is where you'll find things like general descriptions of the whole process, how OAE works, or PureTone works. You'll find resources for finding a local audiologist, and you'll find equipment related resources. How do we select equipment? Under that select screening equipment is also where you will find that document I referred to that will help you determine which method to use for children 3 to 5 years of age, OAE or PureTone. If you're in that dilemma, look at that. And remember too that it's fine to use PureTone screening. It's great. But you do have to have a plan for that percentage of children that are not going to be successfully screened that way. So does that mean you're going to purchase an OAE device as well? Who's going to be trained on that? Or if you're not able to do that, do you have an audiologist that could screen all those children? So planning is an important first step. We always talk about planning before we talk about training. In the next set of resources is where you'll find links to the Learn to Screen online courses for OAE and PureTone audiometry. Have a look at those. In the next set, this is for once you're underway with screening, you'll find checklists for getting ready to screen, letters that you would send out to parents introducing your screening program. Those are available in English and Spanish. The protocol, guides, and forms. We have a set of forms for both OAE and Pure Tone screening that follow the protocol exactly. So you don't have to remember the protocol, what to do after what, if you use these forms, and you'll be documenting every outcome for each ear that you're screening. And then there's some resources for sharing results, referral letters to parents, to healthcare providers and audiologists, as well as some suggested scripts, if you will, for how to talk to parents about the screening process and how to talk to them about the different results you may be getting along the way. In the next group of resources, you'll find a tool for tracking a group of children through the screening process. So not only is it important to document the results of an individual child, if you have 100 children that you're trying to get through that complete screening process, how can you keep track of where each child is to know who you need to get back to, what their next step is? We have a tracking tool there that's designed to help you do that. And we have modules that will teach you how to use that tracking tool. It's really pretty simple, but without that, it isn't simple to keep track of where all of the children are. And then lastly, you'll find a number of other resources that we've developed over the years that are archived on our website. If you're in a Head Start program, you can also seek additional resources from the Health Technical Assistance Center, and this is their website there. So they also have some resources that can be useful to you. So you may not have ever thought of it quite like this, but monitoring the status of children's hearing is central to quality early childhood programs that are committed to language development and school readiness. And when children with hearing loss are identified and connected with the intervention resources that they need, they can thrive, just like we saw in these examples here. And you can have the satisfaction of knowing that you were a part of them thriving. So we hope that we have answered many of your questions today, but in case we haven't, let's see what questions you have. And remember, in a moment, we'll be putting up a link that will go to give us an evaluation of how we did today, as well as will generate a certificate of attendance for your participation in today's webinar if you need that. So, Terry, let's look at some questions here. The first question is always asked, what OAE equipment model do we recommend for birth to 2.5-year-old children? And you're not going to love our answer. And our answer is, because we're federally funded, we can't align ourselves with any particular manufacturer. But be aware that on our website, we have included a number of the currently available pieces of equipment, I think all of them, and they have all met criteria for being able to successfully being used. With that said, we encourage you to, when you find an equipment manufacturer or distributor, ask to try several different ones before you buy, and see how it works under different conditions. Some of them are more sensitive to noise in the environment or a child that might be a little fidgety than others are. Some of them will just be more intuitive to you than they are to somebody else. So we encourage you to try a couple of them and see for yourself. But this is also where having an audiologist partner comes in handy. Often they do have a preference. Your local audiologist may have one that they love. Now make sure that we're not talking about what they love for them as a diagnostician, but what they would love for you as a layperson to use because of its simplicity and because you're going to be screening in a natural environment. Make sure that they understand it's not for them, but for you. But they most likely can be a little bit more forthcoming than we're permitted to be about that. Terry, anything else you want to add to this question?
I just sometimes people can say, well, why is some equipment easier than others? And it really has to do with how the probe and the probe covers are designed and fit. That's one of the key areas. Good probe fit is a key to OAE screening. And so there just are some differences in how those are designed and how well they fit in an ear canal. William's point to, if you can try it out, that's my best piece of advice, is see if you can get it on loan or a trial period and use it in a variety of environments so that you can, find the one that works best for you. The second question about working with birth to 3 and that their current piece of equipment says it requires a completely quiet setting or the result reading will be incomplete. Which types of OAEs allow it to be used in a natural setting, which I assume has some background noise? Great question. William and I have screened at snack time. We've screened in sleep. We've screened in cars while children are sleeping and going around the block, and we've screened out on the playground. And the same things we just mentioned with good probe fit and a good snug fit make those pieces of equipment that have well-designed elements and parts and probes. They tend to be the pieces of equipment that function best in your settings. So
I would also ask around. I would, if you're working in the Head Start world, for example, there's an online, oh man, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. Lenore, if you remember the name of that, you could text me. I know our colleague Lenore is on. Or if any of you who are on remember the name, there's an online bulletin board for Head Start that allows you to share information, give each other, raise questions, give each other advice. That would be a great place to post who has equipment that they love and engage in a dialogue with folks that already, my peers. Thank you, Leandra. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, My Peers is a great resource. And if you Google that, I don't believe it's restricted to Head Start folks either. So that's a really good way to check in with others that are doing this. And there are really hundreds and hundreds of early Head Start and Head Start programs that are doing OAE screening, and you'll hear what people like and don't like. So the next question is asking us to repeat the statistics about the changes in incidence that we expect. We see the research shows that about 3 children in 1,000 are born with a hearing loss or deafness. And by school age, which is around 5 or 6 years of age, that doubles or triples the number of children that have a permanent hearing loss. So that's that statistic. And that serves as a rationale for why it's so important to continue to screen throughout early childhood and after that, for all that matter, it continues to happen. So that's a good statistic, and it's on our website in a handout as well that you can give to colleagues or to family members. In English and in Spanish, so that you could get full buy-in from everybody that this is not just an exercise. This is really important to stay on top of. And one of the reasons why it's so important is because when a child might start to lose their hearing, it isn't necessarily obvious. They might accommodate for it to a point where we're not really picking up on it. They're certainly not going to tell us, I don't think I'm hearing very well anymore. So we have to screen in these ways. So that's a good statistic to be aware of. Let's see. Terry, did you find a question you want to address here?
Yeah, there's one that regarding clarification on our protocol. It says after 2 unsuccessful OAE screenings, not passing. So we've screened twice and we've gotten refers. The comment is I would refer parents back to primary care or primary care provider and not to an audiologist. So kind of a question. And that is really relates to that protocol that William showed. We show that pass and refer rate dramatically changes from refer 1 to the second screening. You go from 25% down to 8%, and then it again goes down from 8 to 1%. And so to avoid over referral and cost and issues with that, we go through 2 referrals and then we refer.
Harry, let me add something here. The reason why we go to the doctor first is because the most common explanation for them not passing that first 2 screenings is because there's a middle ear condition that a healthcare provider can address, whether that's a wax blockage or fluid or a middle ear infection. An audiologist, if they see a middle ear infection, they're not able to prescribe antibiotics or treat it. They would be making the referral back to the healthcare provider. So the proper order, the most logical order, it's not always this case, but is to go to the healthcare provider first. And then if they still don't pass, now we've ruled out the things that a healthcare provider can address. And if they're still not passing, then we refer to the audiologist.
And we eliminate that in-between step.
What's that, Terry?
We eliminate that in-between step of a visit with the audiologist that they're not quite ready for.
Right, exactly. So is there a sheet where we can explain the test to parents or guardians? Yes, you'll find that in the planning and preparing to screen. You'll find information sheets, some colorful infographics that you can download or just send the link to folks, all on kidshearing.org. For those staff who are new, do you recommend both the manufacturer's equipment training and getting trained elsewhere? It's a personal preference. Terry, you can chime in. I think sometimes manufacturers will dive into the nitty-gritty of the equipment beyond what you need. And they might overwhelm you unnecessarily with the details of the equipment. So we have a bias to the practical training process that can incorporate an audiologist who can help you. One of the examples that comes up, we offer an intermediate webinar. We did it last week for people who are already screening. And one of the things that all of the equipment does is it produces an error message or various error messages when you're screening if it's not going well. And while there may be various error messages that come up, the response to the error messages is almost always the same, regardless of what it actually says. And that's to go through the process again. And so you could spend a lot of time with a manufacturer explaining all of these different error messages. But when we do a training with you all, or when an audiologist does a training with you all, they're going to probably say, don't worry about what the air message is, but let's get a good probe fit. Let's make sure the child is sitting still and try again. Here's somebody that is saying that the person that's doing our screening says that the equipment needs servicing. How do we go about servicing our OAE device? Terry?
Yeah, two things quickly. One is the where you purchase the machine. So if you purchased it and have an equipment representative or a company representative, you would contact them and they should be able to service that machine for you. If it was purchased from a vendor such as School Health, then the best bet is to identify the brand and then contact them. You can usually look them up online, and they should have an area or state representative that is in charge of that can then help you get scheduled for service or get that service that you need. So I would try your individual equipment representative if you have one first. And then if you don't, then I would contact the manufacturer and have them find the closest place for where that machine can be serviced.
Now, when you look online for vendors for hearing screening equipment, some vendors will be able to sell you a variety of different manufacturers' equipment, a variety of different brands, if you will. And they are the ones that are best positioned to be able to help you look at and try different ones. So I would encourage you to go down that route if you're wanting to compare some equipment and actually try them out.
Represents multiple manufacturers. Like William said, is your best bet for requesting a loaner to try.
Yep. And we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, then the next question is, can you refer any companies who might sell discounted probe covers? This question brings up a really important point about needing to always use the probe covers that were designed specifically for your brand and model of equipment. Terry, talk about that, will you?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm going to apologize. I've had a plane that was going overhead if that noise came through.
Nope, it didn't.
Okay, great. Yes, each of those probe covers are specifically designed to fit the probe and work with the machine that you've purchased. And so how they're designed, how they're built, their size and their shape is specific to that particular machine. And you will not get accurate results if you use them interchangeably between machines.
Yeah, that is such an important point because you will see those for sale, a variety of different ones. We are biased, by the way, to equipment that offers what is called a foam or compressible probe cover. Those, and not all devices offer those. So that's one criteria you may look for when selecting an equipment. If you can picture like an earplug that squeezes down and then expands in your ear, there are some OAE devices that have a probe cover that does just that. And what that allows is for it to, it's kind of like a one size fits almost every child's ear option by having those kinds of probe covers. So if you see those with a particular device, that might be one for you to consider getting as far as that brand of equipment and give that a try. Again, you can't use those foam probe covers unless they have been designed for use with your specific brand of equipment. So let's see. Are there any other questions before we wrap up here? You guys have asked such wonderful questions. We want to encourage you today to, when we're done here, to find a time to go to kidshearing.org and take a look at all the resources that are there. Remember that this webinar has been recorded. So, we covered a lot of information today. And along the left side of our screen, we had all of the different areas that we were talking about. So if you want to find a particular set of content, remember, you can go back to the principles of screening or the specifics on OAE or the follow-up protocol and just navigate to that portion in the recorded video of today's webinar. We're going to post the survey now in the chat. This is where you will find a way to give us a little feedback on how we did today. And at the end, we'll generate a certificate of attendance for having been a part of our webinar today. Remember also to share this webinar and the resources that we've directed you to at kidshearing.org with your colleagues who may be of interest, who may have an interest in this topic. And we hope to see you on future webinars. Well, about 3 or 4 times a year, we offer this webinar. And we do an intermediate webinar where we review some of this content, but also deal with more details on some of the helpful hints of doing pure tone or OAE screening. A shout out to our captioner and to our ASL interpreters today. Thank you so much for helping us to make this as accessible as possible. And thank you to our background crew. And Terry, thank you for your help with today's webinar. We appreciate all that you have to share with us each time we do this. So look for that link now. It's over in the webinar chat field, and we hope to hear from you soon.